Well, good afternoon, church. Bwana sifiwe. It's yet another beautiful day to be here in church. Thank you, Reverend Mwaura, for bringing us into up to speed with the prayers for the country, the concerns that we must carry for one another, the beautiful news about Leslie coming back. And I love that we have become a wonderful community, and I'm personally very grateful for the kindness that you continue to show to each other as you've stood with those who are in need, whether they are bereaved or those who are sick, bringing your resources. That's what a church is. That's what we exist to do. We show up for one another, and we pray for one another, and we hold each other's hands through the mountains and through the valleys of life, until everybody crosses over safely to the other side. So I want to thank you for being what the church was meant to be, and to urge you to keep it up and not to give up. Well, yes, the story continues, and today we will be in chapter 24, and we say the story is winding down. And so naturally, what we do expect is that Abraham will be taking care of business, in a sense, putting his house in order. He knows the things that must be done. He's growing much older. He knows he probably doesn't have very long to live. And so, he needs to prioritize certain things in his older years, so that by the time he exits the scene, as we all must at one point, then he will not leave chaos behind. He will leave a sense of order. And we have seen that he's a man who takes covenant issues very seriously, and that he's a man who shows exemplary responsibility when it comes to the question of stewardship. So he will not leave strings hanging. He will tie the loose ends and ensure that he leaves his home in order. So chapter 24, I'll make some comments as we go along and see how far we are able to get. Abraham was now old and well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. He said to the chief servant in his household, so this is probably Eliezer of Damascus, his chief steward or his chief servant. And the chief servant is not just, he's somebody maybe in a managerial position. Abraham is super wealthy, and so this is somebody, if you are thinking of a steward, he's somebody like Joseph, who was in charge of Potiphar's household. So he's the chief servant is in charge of all the other servants. So whether it is things to do with, the planting or the harvesting or the supervision of the discipline of those under him, he's a guy who is in charge. And he only comes to report to the master the things that must be done. So he's somebody at a high position of responsibility. And so he's going to address this man because this issue now is important to him. The one in charge of his household, in charge of all he had. So he tells him this, put your hand under my thigh. You may have paused there and wondered, what? So this is not one of those turn to your neighbor. No, you can't do this. Okay? So this is a cultural practice. It's more or less like if you went to a court of law and you wanted to give a testimony, you probably might be given a Bible. I swear, that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Assuming you're a believer and that you do believe in Scripture, then that becomes, your oath becomes your bond. And so it was done only in times of extreme solemnity, things that were deep and very serious, covenantal in nature. And so this putting your hand under my thigh was then an ancient cultural practice where usually much older people would ask somebody of a servant or a son to do if they wanted something done, and that this thing must not fail. So it speaks more to the importance of the matter than anything else. Obviously, because of the passage of time, this is happening in maybe 2000 BC, a lot of the actual meaning of where it came from has been lost. And I've seen many commentators trying to explain what it really means. We really don't know because there are very many interpretations. But one of the things that is agreed on, it speaks into the solemnity of the oath that is being sworn. And different cultures have a way of doing this if something is really serious. Fast forward maybe somewhere around Genesis 47, I think, and Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, is about to die. And before he dies, he wants to make sure he's not buried in Egypt. It's a big deal. We say these things to do with interment and how you want to, to end your life and where you want to be buried were very important to the patriarchs. And so what he did is make a request. He said to Joseph, his son, put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear to me that you will not bury me in Egypt, but you will take my bones and transport me all the way to the cave of Machpelah, where, my father Isaac is buried, where my mother Rebecca is buried, where Abraham is buried, where Sarah is buried. So the oath is of such solemnity that it requires that kind of an action, cultural action. So that's what it really means. In other words, Abraham is taking this matter very, very seriously because he knows, number one, the promises that he has inherited or he received from God will be inherited by his son Isaac. And so if the promises of God are to continue, then the next generation must be well taken care of. And one of the things he doesn't want to take a chance is to have his son Isaac marry a Hittite woman, because then the promises of God will fail. He knows that there is no future with the Hittites. His own ancestors, who are not ancestors, his children and the children's children that will come will disinherit the Hittites. So he doesn't want that lineage associated with his son Isaac. So he wants to command that the servant travels all the way back to Haran, where they had settled, and then take a girl from there to be the bride of his son Isaac, from his own family, from his own clan, so that the plans of God may not fail. So he's putting his house in order. He's guaranteeing that the promises can be passed from his generation to the next generation. Hopefully Isaac will have the same conscientiousness to pass it on to his son Jacob. And we know he did, though not in the way that he had planned. So put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I'm living, but will go to my country and my own relatives and get a wife for my son Isaac. The servant asked him, what if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I then take your son back to the country that you came from? He says this, make sure that you do not take my son back there. Abraham said, the Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. If the woman is unwilling to come back with you, then you will be released from this oath of mine. Only do not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master Abraham and swore an oath to him concerning this matter. Interesting narrative, and Abraham wanting to guarantee the things that will come in the future. One or two matters here that might arise that you may want to discuss during your real groups. Because the matter of marriage is very serious, Abraham gives guidance. At a minimum, he wants to know where the wife of his son will come from. Meaning, where that family is concerned, he knows the character of the people because it's his family. He's sure of the kind of lineage or the kind of daughter that is likely to be gotten from there. He knows a few more details. In modern days, when we think about this topic, we think of it in terms of arranged marriages. And we shun at them. And we say it's ridiculous. And I want to ask a question. Is it really ridiculous? Planned marriages? With the coming of the Renaissance and the reawakening, especially the romantic age of Europe, we ought to be free to choose to marry whoever we wish. The one who makes me dizzy and see stars. You know, yeah, I am so like in love. And I wonder, does experience, what we observe, does our observation validate that when we are free to choose, then we choose better? If we fast forward, for example, just 100 years ago, all our parents and our ancestors were in arranged marriages. Did they do worse than us currently? Do you think? If we were to take a poll, do we have better quality marriages now that we are free to choose for ourselves? Do you think? Actually, the failure rate in our marriages is quite alarming. And you'll be surprised that even within the church, 30 to 40% of the marriages fail. And yet, that is us exercising our freedom to choose. Maybe we have overestimated our knowledge of marriage, the institution, and the complexities involved in navigating this very amazing institution. How is it? Because my argument is, in your adult life, the most important decision you will ever make in your adult life is to give your life to Christ, salvation. The second most important decision you will ever make is marriage. If you get married. They say if you marry well, you will be very happy. Okay? Can you tell I'm very happy? I married well. Look at my girl. You know? I did. And let me tell you, and I'm not saying this to take credit, you know, I was as dizzy as most of you when I was getting married. More dizzy. We married in our early 20s. That's very young, okay? You know, fresh out of college. Now, from the early 20s, now we are at least 60. Do you know how long that is? They say if you marry well, you'll be very happy. If you marry badly, you'll become a philosopher. You will talk about the stars, the moon. You know when Satan is congregating with Venus. Amazing things. It's a very, we've been married much longer than we have been single. We've been married 37 years. Just imagine if we were miserable. 37 years of misery. It's a punishment. It's difficult, isn't it? So seriously speaking, the most important decision you make as an adult is to marry well. You must marry well. How is it that in this very important decision, we leave it to chance? A lot of times, by the time a couple is coming to see Reverend Mwaura, and did we welcome you, Pastor? He's a good pastor, Joseph Mwangi. Simama usalimie wananchi. He's a good man. He has done a lot of work with marriages. Karibu from the city campus, the associate pastor of Mamlaka Hill Chapel City. And you know, by the time they are coming here to tell Reverend Lorraine or these pastors here, we want to get married, the decision has already been taken. In fact, that's when the background checks begin. Oh, which family are you from, etc., etc. Many of us do background checks with our potential spouses after the fact has already been made that I'm going to marry this person. In fact, you already have a date. And this very important decision is actually left to chance. And look, when you do your background checks, they don't change the fact that you're still getting married anyway. The decision has already been taken. And I wonder, is there a place to let those who know you, those who love you, those who care about you, and most of the time, by this time, they are probably your immediate family, brother, sister, father, mother, speak into that space of you getting married long before you've made the decision. Even when you tell them, I am thinking of doing such and such, to allow them to speak into your life, to do some little background check for you, because you see, this party is actually disinterested in the sense of all they want is your good. None of your relatives, none of your brothers, sisters, mother, father want you to get into a marriage that fails. So they actually love you enough to tell you the truth. Is there an opportunity for them to speak generously into your life and actually tell you, and I'll tell you this, there's a relative of ours who lived with us when I was a child, but you know, she was kind of brought up by my parents, and she's a close relative. And once she asked my father, you know, I'd like to marry so-and-so. My father told her, don't marry. Why? Because you're not the marrying type. Just like that. You know, men are like that sometimes. And he told her why. He didn't think she's the marrying type. And he told her, if you marry, you will disappoint your husband. She did marry. And it didn't work out. It ended very badly, you know, very badly. Because at that point, he's disinterested in the sense of he wants her to succeed. But he says, you know, I've seen you, and the kind of person that you are, you know, you'll actually disappoint your spouse unless you do 3, 4, 5, 6, if you're willing. So I'm saying this to say that, you know, when we disparage what we call arranged marriages, we actually discount people from our lives who can actually speak truth to us and tell us, okay, if you marry, these are likely to be the challenges because they know you, they know your character, they know your temperament. And they'll say, if you get this girl, you will disappoint her. If you get this man, he'll probably be disappointed. Or you're not ready. You know, work on these areas of your life. Because when we tell you as pastors, of course you don't listen, you know. You've already you have a date. You've printed the cards. What? Okay, nowadays you don't print, you just email them. But what are we expecting? You know, you even have a rorasho, you know, that's coming. And we are afraid that so many times we officiate over potential disasters. Sometimes we've told you that, and you've been very angry with us that, you know, we don't wish you well. It's not that we don't wish you well. We know nobody walks down the aisle with the intention of having separation or a divorce. And yet, that is the story with so many couples, including believers. Maybe there's something in this that we can learn. If nothing else, about doing background checks or, you know, having some information from people who care about you, who love you, and who are able to speak into your life and tell you, I think this could be your red flags. These are the points that you need to be working on going forward. Just going by statistics alone, obviously, they were much more successful than the current arrangements that we have where we say we are free to marry whom we want. But there's a story here, and there's a story of guidance that I want us to think about again, to be able to discuss this. Abraham is delegating a very important task to a servant. And I'm wondering, wow, this is amazing. He doesn't feel the pressure to go himself. After all, this is his own son, and this will describe the posterity and the blessings of God. And I say to myself, there's something about Abraham that is amazing. He has delegated this task to the chief servant. When the chief servant has said, you know, even he's worried about this responsibility. Hey, you want me to go here? You are sure? And then he has to swear. But then he says, you know, supposing I'm not successful. And Abraham discloses actually who he really trusts. It's not about the servant. He says, the God who called me. And he says, get out from your country and your family and come to this. That God will send an angel who will go ahead of you, and he will direct you so that you can get a wife for my son Isaac. There isn't even an option of failure. You know? It's like he will do it. And then he has to address the fears of the servant. Supposing I go and they are not willing to give me the girl. Eliezer, chill out. All right? If they're not willing, I've released you from my oath. But for Abraham, the options of failure do not exist. Because this task, though delegated to Eliezer, is not going to be performed by Eliezer. Eliezer will simply be guided by the angel of God who has called Abraham, who he has walked with all these years, and who has never failed him once. So he won't start now. And I wondered to myself, could our reluctance and willingness to delegate duties be a sign of our lack of faith in God? Could it be? Where you don't trust God to guide. And we are obsessed with control. We want to ensure that these outcomes, we can control, we can see where this thing is going. And we are tense about anybody else handling the job except ourselves. Lazima tupange kila mtu so that this outcome is like that. Could that be a lack of faith in God? You don't trust that God has your welfare at heart. You don't trust that if you're not there, your kids will be okay. You don't trust that if you don't play a bit of politics here and there in the office, you will get that promotion. You don't trust that unless you cut a few corners here and there and see a few people on the side, you will not get that tender. Could it be that our obsession with controlling everything is a measure of our lack of faith in God's ability to guide? Abraham doesn't seem to have that problem. Eliezer is the one who is all over the map. Hey, you are sending me here. I don't know the people. Now supposing they say they... Don't worry, Eliezer. The God before whom I have walked and who led me, who called me out and told me, he will give this land to myself and my children. That God, he will send his angel. That angel will guide you. He will go ahead of you, and you will get a wife for my son. Failure is not an option because God never fails. Think about it. Think about it. If you're one of those who love to control what happens and to guide everything, it's like Abraham realizes, I don't really control anything. In any case, I'm growing much older. Very soon I'll exit the stage. Who will be there to guarantee outcomes? Only God, who continues on forever, long after I'm gone. And we need to start gaining that confidence. To know that even though I might be young and robust today, it's no guarantee that I'll be there tomorrow. And if there are things that are important to me, those things should be given up, surrendered to God, and trust him for the outcomes, because he never makes a mistake. What if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I then take your son back to the country you came from? Make sure you do not take my son back there. Why? God never made a mistake. He said, this is the land of Canaan that he's giving us. Why are you taking him back to Haran? That's not where we came out from there. This is the future, not that. Right? So the Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land, he will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. If the woman is unwilling to come back with you, then you'll be released from this oath of mine. Only do not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master Abraham and swore an oath to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left, taking with him all kinds of good things from his master. Another thing we can learn from Abraham is just the attitude of generosity. Mark you, 10 camels, they can carry a lot, you know, all right? These are like 10 pickups full of goodies, all right? There is no bride yet. She hasn't even been named. She has not been identified. But the idea of generosity and gifting is already a foregone conclusion. When we find her, we will gift the parents, we will gift her, we will be generous with them. And it's a great attitude. And some of us struggle with this, you know. And we need to know that we need to be, generosity is biblical. It's a good thing. The Bible says he who finds a wife finds a good thing and favor in God's eyes. So why won't you be generous with those who have given you a wife? Our culture has, you know, this policy that you never bargain for your bride. Not that you're purchasing her, but when it comes to gifting, whatever it is that you ask for, you say, yes, I will obey. And you have your entire lifetime to gift them and to develop a relationship and to love on them and to say thank you for giving me a good wife. And I don't know whether this is a sign of struggle for you. And sometimes I have come across people who are very mean, you know, very, very mean. And I wonder, don't you appreciate who you got? This is somebody's daughter. Don't you want them to bless you and to be happy that she's with you? And why are you putting a price on this relationship? Why can't you just be generous and pour out your heart and gift them so that they know that you are? You know, that's a sign of generosity, that I appreciate who I have and that I'm grateful to God for how he has blessed me in this regard. I see people counting cents and shillings, and I say, no, that's the wrong attitude. That's the wrong attitude. Whenever I've gone to pay dowry for my sons, for I have many, you know, we don't care what they are asking for. I want, by the time we are living there, I want them to know that we are a generous family, that we appreciate their daughter, and that we will love on her. And when she comes to my home, under my care and that of my wife, she will be generously provided for. It's the right attitude. Some of you want a bride for free. Why? Why would you want a bride for free? You know, there is no instance anywhere where brides are given for free. The church is the bride of Christ. Do you know that? Do you know what price he paid for her? What price? And that's the teaching of the Bible. The groom, God, paid with his life for you. So don't shortchange your in-laws. It's a bad attitude. You know, it points to a meanness and a surliness in your heart that you will not bless those who have blessed you. There can be no bigger blessing than to receive a bride, a girl, a human being. There's no price that you can put to that. So you strive to create relationships with them and to bless them, even if they are not good, they are not blessable. You know, just spoil them. Maybe I'm belaboring the point. Bride price is biblical. Did you know that? This one is coming from a different context, but Exodus 22, 16 and 17. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he still must pay the bride price for virgins. There's a bride price. It's a recognized concept, even in the Bible. So I don't understand Christians who say that they don't receive bride price or they don't give bride price. There's nothing Christian about it. It's just, maybe you're just mean. So don't give an excuse. It's not in the Bible. Bride price is biblical. And it's a sign of your appreciation. You are not putting an amount. It's a sign that you appreciate the person that you have received. Gifting communicates love, it communicates care, it communicates concern. It's an indicator that you value the gift of a wife and a pledge that you will take good care of her. So the servant takes 10 of his master's camels and he leaves, taking with him all kinds of good things for his master. He set out for Aram Naharaim and made his way to the town of Nahor. He had the camels kneel down near the well outside the town. It was towards evening, the time the women go out to draw water. Then he prayed, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, give me success today and show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I'm standing beside this spring and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. May it be that when I say to a girl, 'Please let down your jar that I may have a drink,' and she says, 'Drink and I'll also water your camels,' let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master." So again, the timing of God is amazing. He appears in this town outside the well just when the girls of the township are coming down. How generous is God? Just the positioning and all is that hour when everybody must come to fetch water. And so at this point, he realizes he's in a foreign land. He doesn't know the people. He doesn't know the culture. He doesn't know the families. So how is he going to receive guidance? And in this position, it is okay to do what he has done. Lay a fleece before God. I don't think it is general guidance for every believer to say, when you enter a mall, and you say, "Oh Lord, let it be that girl dressed in a red dress, when she comes this way and I say to her and she says, hi back, let her be the one." No, that's not the kind of guidance we are saying. Mark you, again, he has traveled, he doesn't know the people, he doesn't know the culture, he has no idea. It could be anybody. And he's at this point afraid that he might make a mistake and get the wrong wife for Isaac. And so he does ask God, "Please guide me. I have no way of knowing which is the right girl. Let it be that the one who comes," and of course he's looking for certain aspects. He's looking for generosity. He's looking for hospitality. And it's a character thing going on there. And he says, if I ask this question and she responds this way, let her be the one that you have chosen for my master, Abraham. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. Before he had finished praying, again, God is not trying to taunt you. He's not trying to punish you. When you ask for guidance, and it's a place you have never been before, and it's okay to ask where you've never been this way before. For example, the crossing of the Jordan. God told the Israelites, when you see the Levites and the Ark of the Lord's covenant, go and stand inside the river. Arise and follow, because the Lord knows you have never been this way before. So there's special guidance for seasons in places where you have never been before. And God understands that. So sometimes you'll be at a crossroads and you've really not been here before. That's okay to ask the Lord. "Lord, if this happens, please let that be the direction that you're calling me, because I've never been here before." So Eliezer was right on point saying, "I've never been here. I don't know the people. Please, when I get this response, let it be the right indicator that this is the girl that you have chosen." And before he had finished praying, that's the faithfulness of God. And this is the guarantee that Abraham had given the servant, that the Lord who called me will send an angel ahead of you. Before he had finished praying, Rebecca, not anybody else, Rebecca came out with her jar on her shoulders. So it's like all the girls are here, but she's printed straight out of the blocks. She's ahead of the rest of them. She was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, the very family of Abraham. What are the chances in an entire village? The girl was very beautiful, a virgin. Again, the whole package is there. Because if she wasn't beautiful, if she wasn't beautiful, he would have been stuck with her. What does he do about that? So the packaging itself, it comes from God. God doesn't make mistakes. He knows the right girl for Isaac, and the girl that comes out is the very right one. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin. No man had ever lain with her. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. The servant hurried to meet her and said, please give me a little water from your jar. So he's testing his theory, and his prayer. Drink, my lord, she said, and quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, so he doesn't prompt her. He doesn't say, would you water my camels? Because that's part of the test. She said, she volunteers this, I'll draw water for your camels too until they have finished drinking. So again, this is a whole different level of generosity because, giving you a drink is one thing. Watering a camel is another. Watering 10 camels is a whole different level of generosity and hospitality. And so if he has any doubt, now God confirms that this is the girl. Which single person would offer to water 10 camels? I mean, camels, we are not very familiar with camels because we're not nomads, but they drink a lot, we know that, yeah? They even have a reserve tank, huko, nyuma, in the hump, yeah? Because they're supposed to be desert animals. They cross and they can go for days without a drink. So when they settle to drink, they really drink. So this was a clear marker. God saying, this is the one. Because what she's doing is very, very unusual. 10 tired camels that have been walking in the desert. She waters them until they've had enough to drink. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well to draw more water, and drew enough for all the camels. That's a lot of work. Probably took 2 hours or so just to give them enough drink. Without saying a word, the man watched her closely to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. Then when the camels had finished drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring. He doesn't want any more information. He already has enough. From what he has seen, he will commit. He took a gold nose ring weighing a becker and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. He'll just ask one more question before he confirms. Then he asked, whose daughter are you? In other words, you are an exceptional woman. What you have done is unique. So now just tell me, whose daughter are you? And the final confirmation he's looking for is whether she's at all related to Abraham. At this point, he has no clue. I think we've been given a heads up whose daughter it is by the author, but at this point, the servant has no idea. She answered him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the son that Milcah bore to Nahor. And she added, we have plenty of straw and fodder as well as room for you to spend the night. So she mentions all the names, and ticks all the boxes. Because at this point, obviously, Eliezer knows the relatives of Abraham. And the minute that Bethuel is mentioned and Milcah and Nahor, he's right in the center of the family of Abraham. And she goes on to offer further hospitality. We have plenty of straw and fodder as well as room for you to spend the night. It debunks a lot of myths, again, about what we think about the ancient cultures and their attitude towards women. This is a young girl. She's come to fetch water, and she has authority, apparently, to contract, to engage a stranger and to tell him, Dad has more straw, and we have more room. You can come and spend the night. She hasn't consulted anybody. So apparently the relations were not as weak, or women were not as disempowered as sometimes we assume in the ancient cultures. Because here, without anybody else's authority, she's able to commit that you can come and spend the night, we can come and feed your animals, and that's okay. And at this point, Eliezer is just a stranger, So again, another interesting point in terms of culture and some of the assumptions that we make. Then the man bowed down and worshipped the Lord, saying, And this is an important point because it feels like, for me, looking from outside in, it's the point of Eliezer's own personal conversion. It appears that up to this point, he's been talking about the God of his master Abraham, but it appears like God is becoming his God as well, because worship is personal. He worshipped the Lord, the Bible says, saying, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master. As for me, the Lord has led me on the journey to the house of my master's relatives." So you can see the conversion happening there. So it's not just about Abraham. I am the one who has been led by this Lord. The girl ran and took her mother's household about this, and told her mother's household about these things. I think the point there that I was making in terms of Eliezer's servant is that faith can be infectious. And when you live out your faith and people see it, you can transmit it to people around you, your servants, your children, your friends, your community. And they look at you and the way you live your life, they say, the God, of so-and-so. I want the God of my master. I want my boss's God. Whenever he's stuck, there's just something about him that depends on God. And within no time, they are worshiping that God as their own God, because they have seen the results of your faithfulness and you're following this God. And now they want that for themselves and their children. The girl ran, so she goes and reports these things. Now Rebekah had a brother named Laban, and he hurried out to the man at the spring. As soon as he had seen the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, and had heard Rebekah tell what the man said to her, he went out to the man and found him standing by the camels near the spring. "Come, you who are blessed by the Lord," he said. "Why are you standing out there? I have prepared the house and a place for the camels." So the man went to the house, and the camels were unloaded. Straw and fodder were brought to the camels, and the water for him and his men to wash their feet. Then food was set before him. But he said, "I will not eat until I have told you what I have to say." "Then tell us," Laban said. So he goes on to narrate the story of how blessed Abraham is and has become, and the son that he has, and how he's become wealthy, and the mission that he sent him on to go and get a wife for his son Isaac. And then he retells the story of his own prayer to God and says, "This is how the Lord has dealt with me. In my observation, I saw Rebekah. She came and she offered me water. She watered my camels, and etc., etc." And when he finishes telling the story, these people are amazed. So he's going to ask them. At that point, he said, I asked her, "Whose daughter are you?" She said, "The daughter of Bethuel, son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him." So he's retelling the story. "Then I put the ring in her nose and the bracelets on her arm, and I bowed down and worshipped the Lord. I praised the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me on the right road to get the granddaughter of my master's brother for his son. Now, if you will show kindness and faithfulness to my master, tell me. And if not, tell me, so I know which way to turn." At this point, he has even refused to eat. He says, "I can't eat until you tell me whether I've been successful or not." Listen to the response of the in-laws or the parents of this girl. Once a powerful testimony has been shared, Laban and Bethuel, so this is father and son, answered, "This is from the Lord. We can say nothing to you one way or the other. Here is Rebekah. Take her and go, and let her become the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has directed." 100% success. That's mission accomplished. Because Abraham had the courage and the faith to trust that God leads well. And he had come to submit himself to God's divine guidance on the most important decision that he was to make at this point in his life. And I want you to challenge yourselves and have these conversations, and be challenged by Eliezer, who was able to trust the God of Abraham. Be challenged by Abraham and his ability to trust God in the most delicate decisions, and ask yourself the question, What's my own interaction with God when it comes to guidance? Do I normally lead and let God follow, or do I let God lead me and I humbly submit to his guidance? I think these are important questions for us to ask in terms of seeking direction for career. In those instances, we tend to really fight because we think it's really important. But the more important it is, then the more important it is for you to submit to God's guidance. If you're single, you haven't married, you probably want to think through your own readiness level. Who are you depending on? Who will guide you? Which voices will you listen to when it comes to the question of marriage? Because it's an important question. You know, if God gives you a long life, then you want to be happy. And you want to make your wife happy, or your husband happy, and your children happy. In which areas are you yet to submit to God's guidance? The Lord bless you, the Lord keep you, the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you.